It's all yours, sir.
All right. Well, while this test is being passed out, I'm Mr. Beus. That's how you say it, Beus. I wrote it up there, and it'll be there for the rest of class. Go to University of Idaho. I'm from Alaska. Anybody have friends or family up north? Nice. Several of you. This is my beautiful wife, and I, a couple years ago, fishing on the Russian River. Mr. Marlowe knows what kind of fish these are, or what kind of salmon these are. Does anybody have a guess? What type of salmon? Close? No? No? It's a good thing. So still has a sea run trout, right? It's a salmon boy. Okay, they're red, or sockeyes, that's what they're called. So there's kings or chinooks, silvers, steelhead, pinks, and then the sockeyes are reds. Anyway, so I really enjoy to fish. That's one thing about me. My wife is better at it than I am. But
At least that's what you'll tell everybody, right?
yeah, she caught the biggest king last year. And that leads me to my next point. I was in Kodiak this summer working. What's Kodiak known for? There's lots of those. And we caught some reds there. My wife caught the biggest king salmon while we were there. It was a lot of fun. Does this work just tomorrow?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Not turn it on. Decide.
Okay. That's an on button. Okay. So I'm from a little spot right there across the way. Kind of shaky, but that's where I'm from. And then Kodiak is right here. And Kodiak is the second largest island in the United States. The big island of Hawaii is the only one that's bigger. And if you split Alaska in two and made it 2 states, that would make Texas the 3rd largest state. So it's a pretty big place, and I'm proud of it. I like to show it off. This is a good map because every time you see a map of the United States, Alaska's like down here and it's all squashed and small. This is what it really looks like when you put it in perspective. And this is Anchorage. It's our largest city, and I'm from Point McKenzie. I'm from a dairy farm out in Point McKenzie. So there's no bridge, but they were always talking about building a bridge. It would just take a lot of money. So when I had to go to school, I had to go about an hour into town and an hour. Well, I went to school in Wasilla, but to get to Anchorage is about 2 hours. But if you had a really nice boat, it'd take you 5 minutes. So someday there might be a bridge. We'll have to see. All right. This is not a high school picture of me, although he is pretty stylish. Do y'all have pieces of paper? If not, I've got some notes we can write on too. But do you have a bunch of pieces of paper? If not, you might take one of these, pass them around. If that's typical of what you do, that's fine with me. These ones are guided, so it gives you some prompts. So at least have the paper. Other than that, anybody have any questions?
I did write that.
That's kind of a brief intro. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for you guys for having me. All right, so this guy, I want you to take a look at this. Yes. We got some more. Where's the extras? Okay. They'll stall. They'll get back to you. There we go. Alright, in the next minute or two, I just want you to write all the characteristics you can think about this guy. Physical, whatever characteristics, any traits. Go ahead and take a minute to do that. Anywhere on your paper. You can put it on the back or go on the back there. Just kind of a nice scratch paper to use on the back. You don't spend too much on this guy. Write some characteristics about this guy. I'm thinking of some physical ones, but if you can think of anything else. Alright, that's all the time I wanted to spend on this guy. What characteristics did you come up with? Glasses. Why would you need glasses? That's pretty. We're assuming he has bad eyesight. They're pretty big. He's got a pretty big nose. Got dark hair. He looks pretty skinny.
Got a weird smile.
He's got yeah, he does. You're right.
He's got perfect teeth.
Ooh, he does have perfect teeth. There you go. Who else wouldn't it?
I think they're unattached to your nose.
Unattached to your lobes? I think you're right.
Brown
And brown eyes. Perfect. There's probably more. Let's do the same thing. Yes.
eyes.
Go ahead and find some characteristics about them.
Is they uncommon or just weird? I don't know what this is.
You just identify any traits, and they don't have to share them. So obviously, Sai's got glasses. So write any trait. Be as specific as you want. All right. What are characteristics for these guys? I think they do. Yeah, I noticed that. Beards. Have wrinkled faces.
They all have like something on their head.
They do. Okay. Camo. All right. I think we did pretty well on that. I wanted to talk about what are inherited traits and what are acquired traits. Anybody give me a definition of that? Mm-hmm.
Acquired traits would be like something that they get on their lifetime.
Yep.
Traits that were passed down from their father.
So this guy, I don't know everybody's name to be honest, but Phil had these two sons, right? Everybody knows names right now. So you can see there's some similarities between them, and that's an uncle, besides an uncle. What are some acquired traits or some inherited traits that you can see between the dad and the sons?
A bushy beard.
A bushy beard, which is tricky because they inherited the ability to grow a beard, and then they acquired a beard over time. So it's kind of both there, but you're right. Long hair, which takes time to grow, but it's also inherited. They can grow long hair, they're not bald.
Eye color.
Eye color is a big one, yep. So there's some acquired things, and somehow Sai has bad eyesight, so we're assuming that was inherited. But you could damage your eyes by not wearing when you're welding. So that could technically be acquired. So you kind of see how they go back and forth. That's really your first question. You don't have to write anything really amazing down, but your first question is just talking about what is an inherited trait. So you can put an example. As long as you understand what inheritance is, we get certain characteristics from our parents. Anybody having trouble with that definition? It's in your own words. This is where we're getting the fun part, the guided notes. We ought to get to these definitions so we can start playing some of our games and stuff. So these are going to be on your worksheet too, where you just need to write down the definition. Sexual reproduction. Anybody tell me what sexual reproduction is? You learned about asexual last week, I believe.
When male and female creatures have an offspring.
Yep. Which is what it's the reproductive cells, which for males is sperm and or semen, and for women it'd be the ovaries. When they combine, they make a baby or plant or everything. get that definition out. But that's pretty simple. This is kind of a long way of saying it, but get the point. And you'll see if you're working ahead, you can get heredity down too. Heredity is passing of genes from parents to offspring. It's inheritance is what it is. Getting the notes down there. There's kind of definitions here. So we got sexual reproduction first. How's everybody doing? Who needs more time? Go ahead. I like these guided notes because you can use them later to study tests. These definitions here are from the text. That's what we'll be talking about. I'll have these available later too. We'll come back to some of these definitions. So finish them up. All right. So who can tell me what a chromosome is from chapter 1? So yep, it's all wrapped up in these bundles and boom, in the nucleus of a cell. So that's what our chromosome is. And this is what we represent them to look like. This is humans. Those are the chromosomes that make us. So the DNA is all there, packaged in these, and this is what makes us. This is what makes us male or female. And they have, this is called the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. Someone told me this is it's called the SRY gene, which is called the Y chromosome. But they say that because SRY is kind of like sorry, and if you have a Y, then sorry you're a male. I didn't think that was very funny, but if you have a Y, sorry you're a male. If you have an X and X chromosome, then you're female. So that's how that works.
What would be like
Twins would just be, well, they're identical. They'd be just two copies of the same set of chromosomes. So it'd be like one twin, and then let's just paste and copy that over here. So this is what makes you up, basically. And we'll dive into it a little bit more, but that is just what a chromosome is. That's what they look like, and we're going to look at them a little bit closer. This is, I wanted to show you this because, so you have a horse and a donkey. What happens when it's a male horse with a female donkey? What's that called? That's what's tricky. This is a mule, so you have to have a male donkey with a female horse, and it's a mule. But technically, if you have a male horse with a female mule, it's a hinny. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Kind of weird. This is a mule, so we'll just go that. But the horse has 64 chromosomes. You saw that picture over here, and it showed you all those sets of chromosomes. I think humans have 23, horses have 64. Donkeys have 62. So they have a baby, and it's a mule, and it has 63 chromosomes. And if the mule tries to breed with another mule or with a hinny, they aren't able to match up the chromosomes right with each other. They have a mismatched pair of chromosomes from the parents. So they're not able to. That's why they're sterile. They can't have babies. That's just a little bit of miscellaneous information that I like, because when you start messing with chromosomes, that's when you can have problems with your DNA, and that's where you can get some disabilities. That's where you can get some diseases. That's why this stuff is So this is a pair of chromosomes. And you saw in the picture they're kind of more like X's, but this is what they represent. They're on either side. And I have two definitions down here. Some of you might not be able to see that okay. So you have to get a little bit closer. But get those down, because that's what we're going to be talking about. So a gene is a unit of heredity. So what does that mean, a unit of heredity? It's really just this. It's a piece of the chromosome, and it's a unit. So we're just saying, it's just this little band right here. That's a set of genes. Occupies a specific location on the chromosome and codes for a particular product. That's what a gene is. It's a unit of heredity. It codes for a particular product. The example we have up here is this codes for the color of flower. This is where the definition gets a little bit tricky, so I have a good example. An allele is various forms of the same gene. So here we have the color of flowers. That's the genes. It codes for flowers. This is an allele that codes for white flowers. This is an allele that codes for purple flowers. So a good way to think about that is your shoes. These shoes, this is the shoe gene. But one shoe could be white and one shoe could be brown, and then they'd be alleles. So they're genes that code for shoes, but what kind of shoe do they code for? And we'll get to why that's kind of important, because one will override the other typically. One will be expressed, is what they say. Everybody getting those definitions down?
If it was purple and white, would the purple one be like the dominant one?
I don't know exactly, but we'll talk about that, about which, because we know certain eye colors are dominant, we know certain hair colors are dominant, and the big thing, we're just kind of hitting the basics of genetics. One thing to keep in mind is that it gets really complex as you go on too, is that you'll have a bunch of genes or a bunch of alleles that interact with each other that make up a certain trait, like hair color. It might be a couple genes that makes it. But for our purposes today, we're going to talk about just the basic ones that we know, some like hair color and some like eye color.
Is blue the dominant eye color? Because I heard that every baby has blue eyes when it's born.
I think blue is recessive, but we'll get to that. We have a good activity for that. I don't know for sure, to be honest, which is recessive, because there's so many combinations of genes. But I think blue eyes are recessive. I have 3 daughters, and they all have blue eyes just like their mom. So obviously Hazel isn't dominant in that situation. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. All right. Anybody questions on this? So what is a gene? Unit of heredity that codes, expresses. It says hair color. This is what you're going to be. So what, if you have a gene for hair color, what are some alleles for hair color? Brown and what? Brown and blonde would be here and here. And that's when we consider them alleles. So you have genes, but then you have different alleles of the same gene. This is Gregor Mendel. He's the one we can thank for all this. Oh yeah, I'm very excited about this part. He's a rock star of science. He was an Austrian monk, so he had a lot of time to do scientific experiments, and he's really considered the father of genetics. So he's the reason why we have all of this. He did an experiment. I need some volunteers, like 5 and 5. Oh boy. Actually, let's just get everybody to volunteer. I like this. Okay. So this half of the room, go stand on that side of the room. Where? Yep. Yeah, stand and volunteer. All right, you go all stand. Alright. You are all sunflower plants. Beautiful sunflower plants. This side of the room, you are the dwarf sunflower plants.
Yes!
So you are little.
We're short!
So you can, let's do it where you take, either you can kind of bend down like this, that might get kind of tired.
I'm gonna have to.
Or you can sit down at a table or even on the floor.
I don't have to.
You are the really, really tall sunflowers. Well, these are regular sunflowers.
I am the
Sunflowers. Okay. So Gregor Mendel. Hold on for a second. Alright. So I'm Gregor Mendel. I'm out in my garden. I planted you all. You're all very tall. And you are dwarfs. And you are what's called true breeders. So that means that no matter what happens, I'm always going to get tall sunflowers from you guys. When we cross the seeds, and well, I'm always going to get tall. You guys are also true breeders, but for the dwarf trait, you're always going to be small, no matter what I do. So then I say, all right, we're going to take the seeds from here, and the pollen from it, we're going to cross is what we're going to do. And then now you're going to be the second generation of sunflowers. So this side, now you're the second generation. Nobody's dwarf.
I'm still.
Nobody's dwarf this one. So you all are the second generation of flowers. Well, you were. Now you're the second. And everybody's tall. We crossed with these guys, and now everybody's tall. There's no more dwarf left when you cross. All right, you ready for the third one? Okay. Let's have this table sit down. We just crossed you for the third time, and guess what came back? The dwarf came back. All right, thanks for doing that. So most of you are still tall sunflowers, but the dwarf trait is back. That's one of the many experiments that Mendel did. He did all kinds of stuff with bees, but this is the sunflower one. He was also a mathematician, so he figured out there must be two things that work here. I don't know how he did that, but he said, okay, there's two things that work here. What do you think are the two things that work? When we have giant sunflowers and we have dwarf sunflowers. So he said he figured out there's two things that work. So we had two different varieties. Let's get this down real quick. This is phenotype and genotype. Phenotype is a trait you can observe. Genotype is the genetic makeup of an organism. It's what we saw, the alleles, the genes, it's the chromosome. Beautiful. It's like a symphony here. Squeaky little pencils going away. Everybody see? I think I'll make the type a little bit bigger next time. As you continue to write, we're going to get to dominant and recessive alleles. And that's what will make our sunflower story come to life. Yes?
I looked up if the blue eyes were dominant, but they're recessive and brown eyes.
Brown eyes are dominant, blue eyes are recessive?
Yeah.
So a dominant allele is an allele that determines the phenotype of the organism. So if you have the dominant allele for brown hair, what's going to be your hair color? Brown hair. Recessive is an allele that is not expressed when combined with the dominant form of the gene. So make sure you get recessive and dominant down. Looks like most of you are doing pretty well. Those of you who are done, who can tell me what a phenotype is? Cheat too, right here. Sorry. A phenotype, yeah. Phenotype. Observable characteristic. So a genotype, this is how I remember it. Gene. You can't observe a gene unless you have a really cool microscope. But, so that's why it's genotype. It's the genetic makeup of organs. So it's actually what's on those chromosomes that say, you're going to have blue hair, you're going to have blonde hair. Hope you don't have blue hair. Blue hair would be acquired because. Okay. So I'll leave these up here for just a minute. Dominant allele. Which was the dominant allele in the sunflower case? The dwarfs or tall ones? That was tall. So we crossed them once, and what happened? They were all tall. Then we crossed you one more time, and what happened? This seed will become dwarfs. So the dwarf characteristic came back. We'll figure out why that was. Alright, I'll go back. So this would have been, if this was the tall allele, it was dominant in this relationship. And if this was the dwarf allele, it would have been recessive. Oh, we don't want to do that. We're not going to need that stick. All right. I think most of you can, if you can't see this, you'll come over here and feel free to move where you can see. So, actually, just view the picture. This is Punnett Square. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. Yeah. A lot of you have seen this before. So if we can imagine this is for the tall sunflower, it represents big A, big A. This comes back to Mendel. Mendel figured out, hey, there's two things at work here. These two big A's and two little A's. Because when we cross the sunflowers first, what happened? They were all tall. And that's what's happening here. This is the recessive gene or the dwarf gene. And when you combine it, the first cross with it, it's all big A, little a. Which is more powerful, big A or little a?
Big A.
Big A. So when they're paired together, it means it's always going to be the big A. So our first cross, we got all of the tall ones because it's big A, little a. Little a is never going to overpower the big A. That makes sense. So then we take this bunch, this group, which was you were all tall. We took you, we made some new ones, and we had big G, little g. So what's this going to be? GG. So it's going to all be dominant. Is it going to be the tall or the dwarf?
Tall.
Tall. So what's this one going to be?
Tall.
What's this one going to be?
Small.
Dwarf. That's where we got this table from. We got the dwarfs over here, the hobbits.
This is the one that makes sense.
And that's what happens. Is we combine them like this, like battleships, G and G, G and G, and you end up with this combination where the dwarf or the recessive allele comes back and it's expressed. That's why there's a lot of diversity, and we have the hazel eyes and left-handed people and all kinds of stuff. I'm hazel left-handed, so I'm very special. Yeah, left-handers, where are we at? Perfect.
There's a lot of left
There's
handers.
a lot. I like this.
I always have them right on the board. For explaining why.
Yeah. This is how we write. Left-handers, right?
the oils here.
Okay. We're gonna. Yeah, we got perfect. Everybody get everything on the notes? The
No,
only thing that we didn't get is
is it draw
draw
from
chromosome. Let's do that. Boom. Draw that and label it. There, I don't care what it really looks like as long as you can remember the science behind it. Obviously, label and draw as close as you can to that, but make sure you're remembering it. So what's this whole thing called? Chromosome.
Question.
Yeah. It's for your study purposes, so as long as you know what you're talking about. Don't eat this.
Don't eat what? I've tried to eat one. You know what? If you seriously. Carly, just don't eat it. You licked it. Carly, what does it taste like?
Alright, so 20%. 20% of the population thinks that this doesn't taste like anything, or it's a little sweet.
It tastes like
Alright. If you have an allergy or allergic reaction, do not do this. It's just, I did not do that, that's gross. 20% of the population has a gene or dominant allele or maybe a recessive allele that says this doesn't taste like anything or it tastes kind of good. Well, that's what happens when I do it. Oh, that's bad. Go ahead and try it, unless you have an allergy, then don't.
Oh my god, I have an allergy to play.
Now, look for the person that doesn't do anything, though. That's what I did this to 20 people, I only got one person that couldn't taste it. Does anybody not taste that? That's not good.
If you do it quickly, it tastes good.
If you lick anything quickly, it might not be so bad. But that is gross stuff. I think we got one. We got a win. Okay. What's that? Yes, I would recommend that.
Can I have a question?
We'll look at math section of this, but if you absolutely need to, go ahead. Oh boy. No, I wouldn't recommend using it. Okay. Eyes on blue for a second. This stuff. Okay. What is your name, Caleb? Or Carson? Sorry. All right. So what was your results from tasting that? Kind of salty. That's what most of us got. But did you have the bitter with it? So that I did this to 20 other students, over at the college, friends of mine. And I only had 1 out of 25 that same thing. They didn't taste the bitter. So his genes, it's probably a recessive trait. Actually, we'll look it up on here. Says, hey, that doesn't bother me. But most of us react to a chemical. It's called PCC. It's not like PCP, something like that. It's PCC. And we taste it. We do not like it.
Yeah, why don't we like it?
Our genes tell us that tastes nasty. We have receptors for that how it does taste.
So that's
In your tables, you can work together. This is a lab we're going to be doing. It's all about these traits, these genes, and how they're expressed.
Seems like a dead sale.
It's a chemical called Beus-Genesee. Did anybody else get one? Alright, you can read the introduction. Let's go into the procedure. So we're not going to worry about groups of 4 students. Just sit in your table groups. It says go through the traits in table 1.1, which is what? This list right here. That's what it is. It says score your own phenotype for each trait in table 1.2, which is this guy here. So you have a table and the traits. It says write the symbols for your possible genotypes in the space provided. So when it asks you for that, we know there was big B, little b, little b, little b, big B, big B. Those are like the possibilities that we have. As you go to table 1.1, PTC tasters was big T, little t. So most of us tasted that. Yes.
How do you pronounce that word?
Which one is it? Oh yeah, that's like, okay, I tried it earlier. Phenylthiocarbamide. That's the chemical that you're tasting because you have receptors for it. Alright, what questions do we have about this activity before we get started? Did you have one? Up in your shoulder. Alright, let's get to work. Bent's pinky is the first one, and the examples are there on the back. You can figure that out. Alright, it's going to say something like homozygous and heterozygous. Don't worry about that. Talk about that later.
They're like green. No, but look at the center. Look at the center. It's like golden center around the black. It's like really dark around the outside. Wait, outside the parents.
Yep.
We have one, what are mine?
That is. Go ahead and cross that out. I'll expect you to know that.
It's like blue on the outside. What color is it?
I don't know.
It's orange. It's like blue on the outside and green.
What do you call it?
Okay, you don't need the parent phenotype on this chart. So go ahead and cross that out. Cross this out first. We're not going to do
So,
that.
start the first one.
There's some more traits. It's kind of like it says like, I don't worry about it. It's all we need to know. It's not even happening. So that is on the back. There's drawing of it. I mean, you have to make flow. That's there's a description of it. Here it says, allele cause then they still touch it. You can I don't see anybody else that like that.
Yeah, you're stuck. Mine.
So if you go like that,
Mine don't tell
in
you.
this picture,
Just don't.
I mean, that's pretty
Is that what you're not?
we do the one, that's
So yours is not. Yours
you got
do like this, like this.
so in the working with I don't think anybody's done that. So because here it says if you have an MVP, like you guys that makes sense. I used to keep going. That's what we just did. So these guys are everybody has a big season.
I mean, you should have the same. Yes.
So because
The first one is.
we all have that. Pretty good. It's a big better.
Oh, yeah.
I can do that. I tried it, but
You can't what?
If you read
you don't have to do like that. I would do that. Don't worry. It's you. Yes. No. That's what we're then you would be, Carson, please. There we go. No, let's do So this is one is and one's like I said, things are a little bit more complicated than just
Sticking one somewhere it shouldn't have been.
broken. But these are really good ways to figure out kind of the something. Alright, you guys are all done. Yeah, there's far more. What's eye color? I'm seeing these. Okay, looks like we've only got 30 more minutes, is that right? Alright. So wherever you're at, let's just take a break real quick.
Actually, you have 3 minutes after the hour's over.
Oh, yes, we've got some time. I wanted to go through. Alright, so how many?
You can erase that if you like.
Sure, thanks.
What?
Okay, pet pinkies. Who has it? Who has it? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Pet pinkies. Who's got pet pinkies? I had 4. Okay, that's right. Okay. 8 pet pinkies. Okay. How many people are in the class? 20. Well, let's see. Let's have to raise hands. We all tasted it. 20 today. We had, most of us did. Blue eyes. Who's good for that? 1, 2.
Wait, what? Blue eyes. Trevor has blue eyes.
You have blue eyes, Christian? Oh, you got 7. Alright, who has the mid-digital hair? Okay, that was a hard one. Let's talk about that real quick. So, the middle segment of the finger, I was calling this the middle segment.
Go like this, like in each sign language.
Perfect. Ian sign language. If you've got hair there. So who does? Raise your hand.
Yeah, I got it.
Alright, 8 for that.
You're like fearless.
Alright, tongue rolling, who can do it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Let's go. I'm trying to curl myself.
I was in the mind, I thought that was a hard one, but apparently a mom you can do. I can't save my life. I can't even try. I could call it talent, but it's inherent in the team, so.
If you can wave your eyebrows like a
wave. Alright, who's Widow's Peak? Okay, we're ready to rock and roll. Thank you guys for coming today. I would like you to put some power in here. Make sure your name's on your paper. Please put it in here. You're going to get them back. I just want to see where we're at. Both. Both papers. You will get them back, but I want to have your name on them.
Marcy, put it in the front.
Paper's right here. Paper's out here on your way out.
Name tags on each table, please pick them up, put them back in the drawer.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for coming, Jake. You got those chairs with for morning. Curling.
Yes.
I warned like three kids, so you get curl. Yes. Yep, I'll be here.
Well, unfortunately, I came before I